It's Halloween. By the time you all watch this, I recorded it on March 9th, 2024. Took me months to put together this series. Therefore, I just want to get that out of the way. Here's the thing. I don't fully believe that based on what happened recently with affirmative action that there'll ever fully be POC solidarity. Meaning that the people who are already united and want to mingle with people of different races are. But there are also people who are going to want to stay within their own race and ethnic group, and that just is what it is. So, how fitting for me to start this series on Halloween, a holiday I don't celebrate and don't particularly care for. So, I just want to go ahead, get on through it, and make sure that I can get some things out of the way about what this series is going to be about, far as how I am, and introduction about the whole concept of race, which really divides us all. Mind you, you hear some pages shuffling because I wrote some notes, so you're going to hear page turning. Okay? So, before we start this series, understand that anyone, regardless of race or background, can learn something from this series. So I'm not here trying to ban anyone from coming in, giving their opinion, and saying what they have to say. So say what it is you need to say, whatever. I don't condone any hate, any violence. So just know that, all right? I will not entertain or respond to comments where any race of people, regardless of their race, are attacked. So I'm not here to blame people for a biological feature they cannot control. I just want to get down to showing some overlap between Black and Asian cultures, far as the West, primarily the United States, is concerned. The way I planned this series out, there will be videos every day in the month of November. If you're typical to my channel, then you know I typically put like videos out only on Saturdays, rarely on Sundays, at the very start, like 12 a.m. in the morning. And sometimes I'll do a few culturally relevant not emails, I mean videos here and there in the weekday, but mostly Saturdays. With the exception of Thanksgiving, which I may make up something very lighthearted at the time of this recording. I hadn't figured that out yet. Since there are plenty of videos, some with commentary afterwards, move at a slow pace and don't feel like you have to watch them all, because I plan to bombard and put a lot on here that could change between now and November, because I am recovering from having these weird dizzy spells. So I will segue a bit in this series. Some videos will be mostly Black, some mostly Asian, of the two different communities. And dependent upon how you all respond day by day, if I have time, I may add additional response videos based on questions that people may raise from the things that I researched. Though I'm the type of person, I encourage you to go do your own research, because I purposely made these videos to not tell you everything. I'm expecting some hate from this, not only from my own foundational Black Americans, but from other races of people who may think I'm trying to stir the pot or making some misunderstandings. But again, I'm simply showing some evidence or discussing some social stuff that shows overlap between the foundational Black Americans and Asian Americans in the United States and Pacific Islanders. I created this because to a degree there is an overlap in the cultures where history and injustice are concerned, despite the stuff you see on the news that show that there is no solidarity between the two groups. This series will cover some international stuff between blacks and Asians, however. So, though I plan to stick mostly within the United States, there will be some international things. Obviously, I will miss out on some of the social and historical issues because there is so much overlap between our two cultures, particularly here in the United States. So feel free to make videos about that or give me some more insight, and I can probably make mini videos later. But this is a series of mini videos. And feel free to make videos on those issues, of course. That's pretty much it. These videos will be short. And again, I don't tell you everything because if you really care, you'll go and bother to do your own research. Now, here's my caveats or disclaimers about race. America's a free country. At least right now it still is. You have a right not to mingle with any person that you don't feel like. Of course, shouldn't have to say this, I'm stating the obvious, but I personally could care less if people dislike me based on my skin color. I integrated because I chose to. I love different cultures, different races of people, and I love talking to them and having these very hard conversations. That's why if your videos aren't made in a sense of trying to threaten my life, I don't really plan to block people. People of all races will always look after their own interests. That's why we got breakdowns of specific towns like Korea towns, China towns, though Black Wall Street was lost. And we lost our own like autonomous neighborhoods to a degree that helped us financially. There's Little Italy and vice versa and so forth and so on. There are people that will never be comfortable with having friends, spouses, etc. of other races or specific races of people, and that is their choice. Meaning, selective racism is something that's always going to be practiced. We need to understand that. I have no selective racism against any race of people for any reason. I do see color. When people say I don't see color, and I did a video on that earlier, a small video about that. You can go back and find it, but I see color. I just don't let it rule my life. Either way, whether people want to mingle with certain races, want to mingle with their own, or they just don't care, we should just respect how they live their lives, because life is too short to worry about it, in my opinion. So long as you know that whatever choice you made is your choice and you do not advocate physical harm on anyone on this forum, that's all I care about. I understand this is going to get heated, but don't advocate for violence against anyone. Just know while listening to this, to those videos that are going to go on all November, if any one particular race or races of people have harmed you, know that it's your experience and not representative of everyone within that race. I would advise anyone that's been harmed by any other race of people to go seek some type of counseling, whether it be religious or secular. You can also just stay away from those people. To a degree, I think race is an excuse to keep people divided. It's also true that there are people who may have been bullied by one or more races of people throughout their lifetime, and those experiences shape their views of the group or groups of people. Don't misunderstand me. People of all races will take some offense to the things that I will present, meaning I expect you to probably be offended. This is just my interpretation based on observation followed by some research. And again, I push research, okay? I think that's very important. So here's what I want to get at about what this series, I gave you pretty much a synopsis of what the series is. Let's talk about what it won't be. I didn't put this together as a stick it to white people series because, again, I have nothing against any one race of people. However, the racial categories which to this day affect people in the West has to do with white culture. So it's going to be hard to not have these conversations without talking about the dominant culture that pushed these labels in the first place. So that is going to come up. And as stated, I have no hatred or animosity against any race of people, okay? Later in this series, legislation discussing education will be discussed. And that goes back to affirmative action and Ed Bloom. Whether the man is racist or not, I don't give a crap if he is. Whether he used the Asian community because of an assumption that they all care for white adjacency, could care less. What we call white in the United States has even changed throughout history, and not all white immigrants that have come have been welcome in the United States. Okay, I'm giving those quick disclaimers. For example, you do know that you couldn't drink on Sundays or buy liquor on Sundays for the longest time because the establishment that be, the powers that be, didn't like drunk German immigrants, or they put that stereotype on a certain type of Germans, probably of Bavarian heritage, who were coming over. They saw them as drunks, and because of that stereotype, you couldn't drink on Sundays for many years. Okay. Signs hung up in businesses in cities, the Nina signs, no Irish need apply, because the established Scots-Irish or Scottish heritage in the United States did not like the new breed of Irish coming over. And people have to understand too about Ireland is that when black people were being emancipated in the United States, Great Britain still had an iron grip on Ireland at this time. And then the potato famine didn't help either. Obviously, lynching is something that I'm probably going to avoid as much as possible, but I make no guarantees because as of March 9th, when I recorded this, I'm still putting together this series. Okay. However, the person you see on the screen, Joseph Shakespeare, was a two-time mayor of New Orleans and was instrumental in turning his back and somewhat participating in the hatred of Italian immigrants that were in the city at the time. So I think when a prison got stormed in 1891, 11 Italians whom Joseph Shakespeare said was lower than the Negro were lynched in one day. And I haven't been able to find any more lynchings, but this looks like the most white people in one day lynched on American soil. So much so that I believe the ambassador to Italy at the time living in the United States protested by going back to Italy. Okay. However, we also have to remember, and I'm saying this at least from a standpoint of black culture, that there were outliers in our history in white culture, like Viola Liuzzo, who left her husband and family in the North to go to the freedom rides and to help give rides back and forth to locations in the name of civil rights. And the Klan pulled her and two guys over that she was transporting, and they shot her point blank range in the head, killing her instantly. Then there's Horace Bumstead, who was the second president of Atlanta University, an HBCU that is now combined to be called Clark Atlanta University. And for his time, though he came from a pretty affluent, well-to-do background, he took a lot of crap for helping the black movement. I don't tell you that to make anyone feel guilt. I'm just saying that there are outliers in this deal. Today we're talking about my introduction, and I'm just giving you basic synopsis. But November 1st, I will only talk about the 5 racial categories. And I'm going to break those down as quick as possible so that you all go and educate yourself and look into that, because I will not tell you everything. This is not a series to persuade anyone to change their mind about any races of people. Again, I'm going to focus on the Black and Asian struggles and how there was solidarity to some degree and overlap to some degree. But it's hard to dismiss white culture. I was about to say black culture, because this 5 racial categories created in universities in Europe by white culture made its way to the United States and is the basis for the racism that we live today. If it doesn't apply, just let it fly. I'm not discounting that some terrible things have happened to various people in the past, such as lynchings, which mostly happened to myself and my fellow Black Americans. Well, it didn't happen to us, it happened to our ancestors. Stolen land from the people who were here first, mainly Native Americans, resources, etc. Okay, so now we're going to get into the actual facts about this starting November 1st. Again, this will be the only video that will play that day to set you up for the other videos. Johann Friedrich Blumenbach, who you see on the screen, is the basis for the 5 racial categories that still carry on in the United States to this day, and the reason that we still have this racial strife. Now, I studied him and I found no evidence that Blumenbach himself did this to be racial. However, unless I would say 100 years later, at the onset of scientific racism and after he passed, is when this thing took off. I encourage you all that are interested to go look him up and overview all 5 of the categories, because that video is going to be short. I think that consciously and subconsciously the categories still exist, which is what prompted this series. Also, if you can, please research Johann Friedrich Blumenbach for yourself. I'm not here to persuade you that the man may or may not have been racist when he came up with the racial categories, but the racial categories predate what we call social Darwinism or scientific racism. While reading his descriptions, it's likely that he hadn't intended those to attack people, but it was used after his death. Instead, I think that Blumenbach was making an attempt to explain the natural world, and his attempt was something that carried over into the Western world and carried all of this stuff of what we know again today as scientific racism and social Darwinism. And those folks 100 years after his, or probably less than 100 years after his passing, ran with it. Blumenbach's racial categories are also not comprehensive, meaning that you had caste systems and different systems based on stigma and color throughout the world, so we could hardly just put this off on people of European heritage. I'll allow you, if you like, in your discourse to do the research and figure out and discuss these things if you like. All right, I'm going to leave y'all with a little music. If you're watching the series, because I'm not that big of a channel, so I don't know who's watching and who isn't, I encourage you to go and look up Blumenbach and study those 5 racial categories and be ready to challenge me. Some of you may not even catch this video till later on, but not gonna wish you a happy Halloween, because I just don't care for the holiday. It's just not my thing. To each his own. All right, I'm gonna leave y'all with a little music. Keep up. It'll be a busy month in November. Thanks for stopping in.